Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the eLearning show with Origin Learning. Like you might already know, we'll be bringing one of the practitioners every fortnight from instruction design, graphic design, and technology to share practical tips, hacks on learning technology, content, and solutions. So, if you're responsible for training for your customers, partners, employees, then you should follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube. You'll be able to find the link in the description. Today, I have Shan with us. He is Senior Director of Technology with Origin. He has about 15 years of experience in designing and delivering learning technology solutions. He's been leading technology team at Origin for the last 10 years and responsible for all our client engagements, from innovative startups to Fortune 500. He's also been instrumental in designing, developing, and deploying mobile-first Fractal LXP that won Brandon Hall Silver Award for Learning Technology last year and NASCOM Design Award in the mobile category. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me join Shan.
Hi everyone. Hi Sajjan.
Hello, Shan. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think we would like to start with what's happening around us. You know, several reports kind of indicate that there is a shift in the training delivery modality. Some might even argue that this is a single most important factor that is driving digital adoption in the organization. So, in your opinion, how should organizations prepare themselves for this shift?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think talking about what's happening around, there is so much which is happening now, especially in the last 3-4 months. I mean, you can't even track what's the kind of change the world is going through. So obviously, all these changes will result in, change in business. When I look at this change, I see a change in some of these areas which will impact us directly, which will be like change in the way people work. People used to work, go to a particular place, meet other people. There is natural collaboration that happens at the workplace. They all, locked up in one place and they all work together. That is changing. And especially countries like India, where work from home is not a default option. It could be something like a perk given by some companies, but it is not something that is always given to employees. But these 3-4 months, we have seen companies who are not even used to such a model is doing it, not out of interest, but out of compulsion. And also, for that, you need to use certain technologies. The technologies that we've been using once in a while now, it becomes part and parcel of your life. For example, conferencing tools and certain collaboration software like Slack or Google Chat. So all these are kind of coming into people's lives. Then obviously the overall market is changing in terms of what kind of solution they're looking for. There is a shift in that as well. So we are seeing a lot of change outside, and it is I would say the single largest event in this century maybe, which is impacting every single living being, be it human, be it animal, or organizations or country. It is impacting everybody. So businesses should be aware of this, and then they also need to know that things are not going to be the same after this, because what changes they are bringing in now, they're not going to throw it away. People who got used to remote working would like to continue that, both from the management side as well as people side. There are advantages in remote working. So what I'm seeing now is this people who are spread across different parts but doing the same work. Integrating them into one single objective is the single most challenge for companies in the next 2-3 years, is what I'm seeing. So for that, they need to go and invest on tools. They need to basically train them on certain tools. So the amount of learning you have to go through, either from tools and technology point of view, or even look at it from a management point of view, because there may be a managers who have never encountered such a scenario. They come to office, they talk to 20 people, they know what is where, who's coming in, who's going out. They are kind of seasoned to do that kind of management. Today, suddenly you are throwing them at a situation where all these 20 people, you can't even see them and you don't know what they're doing. So this is a lot to take for a traditional manager, and the organization needs to train them also. And look at the IT people's, scenario. So even the IT people are kind of trying to manage newer environment, newer challenges. There are new data security issues. So it is a lot happening, and I see, the change is has already happened, and it is going to be there for even coming years. So that's what I see in terms of what is happening around.
Yeah,
So
so you make a very important point that the change is happening. There is no denying there, and it's impacting work culture. It's impacting management, right? Management, how leaders or managers manage their employees. But one
right,
of the biggest concern is change management, right? Apart from delivery modality. Now, this includes hardware, software, processes, systems, investments, uh, and nobody had factored this before. So how can organizations use existing investment now to manage this shift better?
okay, that's a tricky question because there are existing investments that will help with the current scenario, and there are investments that are going, unused. For example, you have invested in real estate, you have invested in furnitures or a facility which may be world class, but in current scenario you may not be able to use it. But at the same time, there are investments companies made in collaboration tools or remote working. They created policies and systems around it because even the IT needs to be, changed to support that kind of a model. Companies who have already done that is basically benefiting out of it. Even in our learning scenario, companies who have already moved towards digital learning scenario, who have invested heavily on creating digital content or created that framework to produce digital content. Those companies are benefiting in this scenario because they don't have to put people in one place to train anybody. And obviously, there are more and more areas that you need to train people now because of whatever the change is happening. I also see this particular scenario. What is blessing in disguise is any change you want to bring in requires a lot of convincing to be done. You have to, talk to people from all the levels so that they agree to whatever the change you're bringing in, because it requires money, it requires effort, it requires hardware, software, everything. But as a pandemic scenario is actually, breaking all these barriers. When something is needed, yeah, it is needed tomorrow. So when somebody wants to go remote, it, 2 years ago, probably there'll be a lot of resistance he has to face. Even if the CEO wants, the stakeholders would not be ready to do it, or they would have given him a plan of 5 years. Okay, let's do it in 5 years. But now you can see there are companies who have gone completely remote in a month's time. Obviously, there will be issues, but the change management happened, the amount of change management at the organization level or even individual level. People will be hesitant to install a software, to learn a software, use a software. You have to do a lot of, communication around it. You have to train them. But today, people has to go and learn because that is the necessity. So you see the amount of individuals who have learned to do all kind of this remote, talking to each other and collaboration and all that. Earlier, you do a WhatsApp call, people will come. But if the moment you say Zoom call, if you take 10 people, 8 people will ask what is Zoom. But today, all 10 will say they know what is Zoom. So the change management had happened much, much faster in these periods. So companies, partially whatever the investment they've done on IT and strengthening it in terms of communication, definitely they can use it in other areas. But obviously, physical investments are going to suffer.
Sure. So you were talking about how companies need to move faster in this pandemic, with either a new technology or a new delivery modality. But
Right.
what are you hearing from your customers? How are they managing this shift? From a technology perspective, from a delivery modality perspective, from an implementation or procurement perspective, what does your typical strategy look like?
So most of our customers we are dealing with, they're from obviously from USA, and mostly Fortune 500 or companies who are in the Bay Area or tech startups. All these companies, as a culture, they're already, used to such a model. So they've already made investments in those areas. So when people need to work from home, it is more like, okay, instead of 50%, all 100% will work from home. And their infrastructure, their training, their culture, everything supports that. Including, individuals at home, they have separate workplace and all that. So we don't see a lot of change in terms of new infrastructure or bringing in this culture in our customers. Obviously, we are seeing a lot on this side of the world, like India, but in
Sure.
US. But at the same time, they're also looking at moving towards some systems that are more interactive, uh, especially in
Sure.
our domain when it comes to learning. So we are also seeing, increasing inquiries about the learning experience platform that we are having, because they want now a traditional system where you're pushing content to users and hoping that they will come and see may not work. Now you need to give them choice. So things like learning experience platforms will be able to, provide that choice to the learners, and also obviously the kind of digital content, the variation of that, and the number of systems where the learning content is there. All these are kind of increasing now. So I think we need to enhance some of those investments that are already there. We need to look at, okay, what is this new normal wants us to do. So now it is time for the organization to move towards that. But at the same time, I would like to warn that none of our customers are looking too far ahead. They're not thinking that, okay, what will I do 1 year from now or 2 years from now, because everybody is watching, okay, how long is this particular pandemic situation is going to exist. Obviously next 3 months, 6 months you can have a plan, but beyond that, if you have a plan according to this, then it may not pan out because the situation changes every day. So everybody is aware of that. They wait and watch. They are making investments, but they are making investments in increments. For the best way to do that is to go for cloud-based technologies, cloud-based tools, where you can subscribe for a month or two. Try out. If it works really well, then you continue. Otherwise, you use it for this scenario and drop it. For a longer period, you can basically consider this as an evaluation. So
Right.
that's what I think people are doing.
Sure. I think if I have to take home 2 points, I think the 2 points that you mentioned, one is that, take expenses month by month or maybe quarter by quarter, but don't plan anything longer.
Yeah.
Or the second point you spoke about was about subscription and cloud-based solutions, right? These are the two main points that you mentioned. So we have two kind of or L&D organization. One is your tech startup, and people who are more um, you know comfortable with technology systems and consumer disruptions and all that. And then there is another non high tech employees who are probably working in manufacturing, working in engineering, or working in oil and gas. So so learning organizations are every learning organization has their own journey, and so when there are different learners profile, and then localization and different profile
Yes.
roles and all that, how do you actually what factors do you consider while implementing a learning technology solution that is comfortable for all, engaging, immersive? How do you plan? What factors do you consider?
Yeah, obviously, yes. Whatever the solution we provide, definitely take into consideration the kind of business they are in, and the audience profile, their what age group they are, and how comfortable they are with technology. For all you know, something like a company where dealing with turbines, and they're going to explain a inner component of turbine. Sometimes it is more effective to carry that component and show it to the participants. Whatever the digital training you do, it
Sure.
cannot be equivalent to that. So I would always say, we don't have to push digital always. It is always look at it and say, okay, this is the best mode of training, and how do we push, make it more, I would say, efficient. Um, because I remember for GE in the past, they had to go and in the classroom they need to show the I would say a turbine, and explain the parts. So the best way, a typical e-learning organization would think is to, I mean, go for a 3D model and show it on the screen. But you can also think of the model can be converted into a physical 3D model, which can be dismantled and they can carry in a case. So the solutioning can be anything. So our job is to basically analyze what they need and how to provide it. For instance, one of our recent projects for a AI startup, they have a product that will be used by the developers, and the product is a complicated product. It keeps changing because they are a startup. They keep developing that product. So you do a screenshot based simulation, then you give it to them. In 3 days time, the product will itself change. So you cannot basically chase and be on current with the product. So what we have done, we used a virtual labs solution. So the live product will be available for the learner to come and train. Whenever there is an update in the product, we update the virtual lab. So from the course, we link the virtual labs so they come in there and train. This is a totally different kind of solution, which is possible only in a cloud-based startup scenario. Even if it is a larger company, they would not allow you to put their software on VLab. There will be hundreds of processes, and you need to answer to so many people before you put it out there. So we always take these things into consideration while giving the solution. I think I answered your question.
Yeah. So I have two questions here, right? The first one is, you said you spoke about making the learning effective, and when we talk about making the learning effective, ROI is an important consideration, right? So how can L&D organizations make a business case to their CFO, especially in the current times?
Yeah.
While there is a downtime, you can reskill, you can upskill employees, but in this current environment where you don't want to look beyond 3 months, 6 months, how do you make a business case?
Yeah. See, the ROI calculation on learning is the holy grail everybody is after for years now. So it's a constant challenge for organizations. Not because no, it is difficult to do, but the naturally it is very difficult to measure the effectiveness of a training or learning after 6 months or 1 year. Let's say I take you and I'm training you on a particular skill, and your performance is measured today, and your performance will be measured 6 months or 1 year after. That's a traditional method. But when I measure your performance 6 months later, you might have gone through three other trainings, a mentoring session, attended a seminar, read 5 books, or gone through a breakup. You know, right? And your performance, I cannot link it always towards the training that you have had. So it is not very easy. So it requires larger sample size. So I will take 100 people and 50 of them should go through training. It's like your vaccination test. 50 of them will not go through the training. Then I compare how this 50 is performing, how that 50 is performing. If other parameters are not changing, if the first 50 is showing improvement, then my training is effective. So it's a very, very complicated exercise. But the good news is the technology is growing so much with I would say machine learning and artificial intelligence. You can now analyze even complex sets of data. So as long as an organization will be able to collect as much data as possible about the business, about somebody's performance, also about what somebody is learning. If we will be able to combine all this, probably we will be able to come up with an algorithm which can, I would say 60-70% accuracy relate his performance to the particular learn. So there is a possibility, at least now, to have that kind of an algorithm. But I would say for that, to reach that, there are multiple steps. You cannot do it on day one because for any, machine learning kind of a project, you first need a lot of data. So do you have that kind of a data warehouse system or all your systems are integrated? Then do you have a learning system that is capable of gathering all the data? For instance, in our product Origin Fractal, we not only have the regular learning track, we also create an LRS in parallel, the learning record store, which captures all the learning activities that a learner does. You don't know why you need it, but it might help in some of these deep analysis when you want to do. So yeah, ROI calculation is tough, but I can see some possibilities at least in the last 4 or 5 years. So let's hope, somebody managed to crack it.
Sure. So you actually spoke about how organizations are either creating a model of a large system or a machine. When you earlier spoke about a turbine example, then you also spoke about simulation, how organizations are adopting simulated environments or virtual labs. So there's a huge disruption in this consumer technologies like AI, VR, in addition to all the older models that we had. So how should organizations choose what is right for them? Of course, you briefly touched upon learner's profile, but what are the other factors that you should consider when you choose a technology?
Yeah, obviously, when you go to an instructional designer, they will start with the learner profile. And also, what we need to consider is the type of content itself. So some of the content, it is better to just show a picture and explain. And you try to do a 3D, it will actually confuse learners. So I think the design plays a major role where, okay, this type of content, I need to go for this kind of technology. Let's say an augmented reality will work only in certain scenarios. So in our case, we have used a lot in engineering and technology, engineering and manufacturing, but not in high tech. Because obviously this solution is not fitting in any of the use cases that they are having. So the kind of business you are in also matters because you are already in a, let's say your software itself is running on PC. You cannot create a mobile solution for that. We have come across that kind of challenges. So it's a combination of factors. The initial solutioning and design will decide which way to take. Okay, a virtual reality, solution, would it make more effective than a simple video like a talking head? In some cases, that might be even better than a virtual reality scenario.
So I think you spoke about increasing learning effectiveness and uh, personalization and Netflix like recommendation seems to be holy grail for all L&D organizations. So how can organization achieve almost the same result with minimum time and effort? Uh, you know,
Yeah. So yeah, for somebody like Netflix, obviously they have, a huge repository of content, and they need to learn about every individual user in order to tell them what they need. Obviously, the learner or the viewer can go and search for it, but they would never know that something like that exists. So they basically go and look at, okay, what was your last movie, or they will take 10 of the movies that you have watched and try to build a profile of the viewer. And also there are profile for content, then there is a match between the profile and content they will try to recommend. I think in of late, in most of the, I would say, apps that we interact, we are expecting that kind of a behavior because we got spoiled or we got used to the app telling us what we need to do. So what we are doing in Fractal is like we have a recommendation engine which will create a learner profile, which will create a content profile, and it will do cross mapping and see if learner profile and content profile matches. I will start recommending you. Let's say I take a course and my colleague take a course, and we are of the same learner profile, and his content will be recommended to be, to my taking. So all these we are currently doing, and in terms of learning experience platform, the important thing is discoverability of content. So I should come in and based on my job role, my expected competencies, the system should keep recommending that, okay, this is what you should be learning. If you look at the traditional learning management system, where an administrator will know what you want, they will assign it to you. So when you log in, you will see my learning, which is like a set of courses I need to do. It will take 10 hours. So I go complete all 10 hours, I come out of it. But in an LXP, it is not very clear that what you are supposed to learn. So you will kind of discover it over a period of time. This is very, very needed nowadays, mainly because whatever we have spoken so far, the change is happening. It was happening at a particular pace, but because of this pandemic kind of scenario, it is happening at a much faster pace. I know it will slow down after some time, maybe, but the change is happening very fast so that nobody knows for a particular job role what is important 2 years from now or even 1 year from now. So they want the, I would say, the learning path or a curriculum to be dynamic. The learner himself wanted to be dynamic so that whatever changes happen outside, the learning is also updated accordingly. So they come back and see 3 months down the line, there are 3 of their courses removed, and there are new content got added saying that, hey, now for this role, let's say you are a front-end engineer, you need to learn these things also. So then they know that, okay, whatever I completed 3 months ago, now I'm only 80%. There is 20% of learning I have to do to become 100%. So that is what the learning systems needs to do today. They also need to change according to the market and also how these, individual job profiles are changing.
right. But if you look at it, today learners are actually learning beyond the traditional learning management system. So how should organizations facilitate that curiosity, build skills and competency, and at the same time ensure employees are more productive in their job?
Yeah, it is always the classic question is, you spend time in learning, how will you focus in the job? But I think that question is no longer relevant, because unless you learn, you will not be able to do your job at all. That's what is going to be the new norm. Because, as I said, especially in IT high tech scenario, a particular job profile is changing completely every 3 years. In some cases, it is 2 years because the rapid, innovation that happens. So I develop a library, you develop a library, and we both are not keeping it only to our organization. We put it in GitHub, and that becomes a product by itself, and people keep contributing. Then suddenly you see, 3,000 people are working on that code, and it becomes much better than a proprietary software. But now I have to learn that whoever is using the proprietary software needs to throw it, and they have to learn this new method. So what is happening here is, unless I learn, I'll not be able to relevant. Unless I'm not relevant, I'll not be able to productive. So investment on learning systems are no longer, I would say, a luxury. It is the fundamental necessity going forward. You need to train your people. You need to let them go out and explore, because the organization themselves will not know what is relevant, and the L&D cannot keep track of, if I have 50 job roles, I'll not be able to keep track of what is the current requirement for these 50 job roles. Yeah, I can do it, but by the time you collate, you just put together a curriculum, you develop training, you roll out in 2 years' time, then it is kind of outdated. Probably 60-70% is already gone. So this is a constant challenge. So you need to look at a system which is ready to explore. So obviously you will upload content. Then you have another system like a SharePoint in your internal network, where you are storing all the product catalog and everything. That can be a source for you, because operationally you will keep updating it. And then you might have a video library which is in another system. Out of this, you may even link to some repository like Udemy, Coursera, from where your employees can learn. So your learning system should be able to go even out of your organizations and bring what your employees needed. So this is what is going to be the requirement going forward.
Sure. I think the message is very clear here that, let the employees be curious, and let them learn, let them go out and not really administer the learning courses, but create an environment where they can be curious, build competency, and then deliver an experience for them to perform better on their job.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Shan. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Sajjan. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Bye.